failed to capitalize and utilize their brand. In fact, several years ago, Dish finally brought the assets up to Blockbuster. And so Blockbuster was, quote unquote, here in town for a short while. And then this last year, Dish scuttled it and said, we're not using the assets anymore. So the sin number one is you got to utilize your brand and position to achieve specific goals and objectives. And we see it all the time that companies don't utilize that brand. And to Roger's point is, part of the big for, especially for products or services that are around technology or patents, big part of people worry about not only the technology, but just as more important is figuring out how to market the thing. In fact, a lot of times just as important. In fact, we have a lot of clients these days, and I wouldn't recommend it because of Roger, but a lot of them take more of the .com mentality is get big fast and then worry about the competition later, okay? Secret number one is champion your brand to achieve your goals and objectives. And let me give you an example. Oh, I got a quote here. Tom Peters, regardless of your age, regardless of position, regardless of the business we happen to be in, we are in need of understanding the importance of branding. We are all CEOs of our own companies, Me Inc. The business of today, the most important job is to be head marketer of the brand called you. Your product, your invention, it's all about how do you brand and position yourself to achieve the goals and objectives you want to achieve. So how can you do that? Dave was a real client of mine. This is an actual picture of Dave. I can't show his picture because he's now retired. But Dave invented a product called an Earth Anchor, a local company that they drove into the ground to support everything from tree guy lines to utility arrays to retaining walls to power poles. He made an Earth Anchor. So successful, his Earth Anchor. They had little tiny ones to support trees, everything to these giant, huge plate ones to support those big utility arrays. And he made a bunch of different products and Earth Anchors. But it became so wildly successful that all his Earth Anchors were distributed on 7 continents of the world. He had 4 foundries all around the world manufacturing his products because they were pretty expensive to ship. And when I first met Dave, he called me about a packaging for one of his products that he wanted to get into Home Depot and Lowe's, the little tiny ones that for tree, hold up tree guy ones. And I started talking about what his bigger picture goals and objectives were, and he goes, can I really tell you? And I said, sure. So he goes, great. He walked up, closed the door, and he goes, instead of just packaging this product, I would really love to package this company to get acquired. And if you're doing your job, not only will we be talking about the product packaging, but packaging the company. Because I'm 68, my goal is I want to be retired, but I'm top by the time I'm 70. The only way I can do that is package the company for acquisition. So I said, okay, let's talk about that. And so we kind of mapped out on the board what we needed to do for the next hour. And he goes, great, give me a proposal by tomorrow morning and let's get going. And literally, it turned into a couple $1,000 product packaging assignment to a couple $100,000, 12 to 18 months assignments. And he said, I'm gonna make this happen. And at 68 years old, I had never met anybody in my entire life so damn energetic and driven to get this goal accomplished. And within 18 months, we had his biggest competitor in the marketplace, called him up multiple times. Finally, the last time, he goes, I'm flying out, I'm taking you to lunch, and I'm gonna buy your company at lunch. He goes, it's not for sale. And he goes, I bet you that you can't say no to me. Wrote on a napkin, this is what I'm gonna buy your business. He goes, sold, let's make it happen. And within 45 days, he had sold his company and he was retired within a total of 18 months. And Dave had specific goals and objectives. He was here, wanted to get to here, and for him, it was I wanted to retire. And so for brand champions, if you all are brand champions of your brand or your product or your service or whatever it is, your technology is around, what are your bigger picture goals and objectives? So how can you put together a brand to achieve your bigger picture goals and objectives, not just for the product or service, but for what your bigger picture goals and objectives are. And that, in my mind, is what a brand champion is all about. So what is your achieve anything? What are you trying to accomplish for yourself, your family, your company, your stakeholders, your shareholders, your employees? What are you trying to get accomplished? And how can you brand and package your company, your product, your service to help achieve these bigger picture goals and objectives? Any thoughts, questions? Because in my mind, brand's not just a logo on a website. Brand is how you brand a package and position it so it becomes really, really attractive to whoever you're trying to market towards. And you have to think of brands as holistic in nature. It's not only how you market it, how you sell it, but how you deliver the product or the service to achieve your bigger picture goals and objectives. And the best brands are the ones that understand how to brand and package things for specific goals and objectives. You guys got to ask questions because I'm going to go through these in no time. Yeah. Sin number 2, you can't win without a strategy. There's a little company called JCPenney. Several years ago, they've been wandering around for the last 10 years. They hired one of the guys from Apple who said, we're going to make them like Apple. Ron Johnson from Apple, who was in charge of the Apple stores, came in and said, I'm going to move them from a discount retailer to a premium retailer. What was wrong with that strategy? Anybody? That's exactly right. He failed to understand who their clients were. Their clients were programmed and conditioned to look in the Sunday flyers in their newspaper to see the weekly specials, what the coupons were. And they built their whole customer base and their whole success on being a discount retailer. What's that? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And they brought in a bunch of higher brands and more premium brands, and they alienated their entire customer base. And within a matter of 18 to 24 months, their earnings fell through the bottom of the floor, and he was fired because he failed to understand who their customer was, how to connect with them, and his strategy was completely flawed because he didn't understand who their customers were and what appealed to them and what didn't appeal to them. They are clawing their way back because they brought in someone who understands who their customers were and what appealed to them.
And being a stockholder back then during that was not much fun.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
So Ron Johnson, he had success at Apple with their premium stores because at the time everyone says, oh, you can't afford stores in high-end malls. I mean, no one does that.
Right.
He did get it to work.
Yeah.
But then he just took it across the street to JCPenney, and it's like it was a whole other culture.
Totally different culture.
The name JCPenney just
Yeah.
says a certain thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you got to understand what your strategy is, who your target customers are, who your audience is, who and what's going to appeal to them, and how and what the most effective mediums to be able to reach them are. And you have to be able to know what that strategy is and be able to write that strategy. I'm amazed when I meet with people all the time how they don't have a strategy. They don't know who their targets are. They don't know how to put together a message that communicates the value points of your product or your service that is going to connect with the customer or your target. And then how you're going to take that message and go to market. And what does that strategy look like as well too. Secret number 2, have a clear and concise strategy that separates you from the herd. Know how and why you are better than the competition. I see it all the time. People say what they do, but they don't communicate how and why they're better than the competition. So you got to know what that looks like. About 80% of the companies I see, they say what they do, but they don't communicate how and why they're better than their competitors. Be able to know what that is and how to effectively communicate what that is. Define what your brand stands for, its core values, and the tone of your voice, and communicate consistently in those terms. Understand what your brand is. Understand what the message is. Understand what the value points are. Understand and know why and how you're better, and then effectively package that and communicate it consistently over and over and over again until your target audiences know who you are and what you're all about. Here's another company, another retailer. Do you think they knew who their customers are?
No.
Jane, you wouldn't happen to be one of them, would you?
No, not really, I just know.
You just knew one of them.
I shop around.
There you go. But Nordstrom knows who the customer is. They know who their target is. They know, in fact, they're one of the most profitable as well as one of the most regarded retailers, and they have a very small segment of the marketplace. But they know who their customers are, and they know how to effectively communicate with those customers what it's all about to have to shop at Nordstrom. And know what that is and communicate and convey it all over and over and over again. In fact, if you become an employee at Nordstrom, you'll have to go up to Seattle and you have to go to Nordstrom University. They teach you how to deliver their brand experience that they want their customers to have. And so they know what their brand is, what it stands for, how to communicate it, as well as how to deliver upon that brand experience. And they make sure they train all their employees on how to deliver that. They spend a fortune on training of their employees on how to deliver on that brand experience. Know what your brand is and know how and why you're better than the competition, and know how to effectively communicate what that is.
Can I say one thing about Nordstrom? This
Yeah.
is a goofy personal story.
Yeah.
A couple of Christmases ago, I bought some cologne at, what do I want to say, Macy's. And it was Christmas time, their gift wrap department had a long line and they charged and everything. So I wandered into Nordstrom and they had a gift wrap thing. And I was willing to pay, and I asked them, and they knew, from the sticker I got at Macy's, so they gift wrapped it for free for me instantly. And, it paid off because my loyalty and impression of them is like,
Absolutely. It's huge. The other thing is know where you stack up against the competition and how and what this is like a magic quadrant, but know where all your competition lies in the quadrant, whether it be price and performance or service, or I don't care what the measures are, but understand the lay of the landscape of the marketplace you're going to be competing in, and know and understand where you want to be. This is a little sunglass manufacturer here in town that we worked with quite a bit. And when they first came to us, they had a product at the low end here, what we call rack sunglasses, on the counter in gas stations. And then they had another product that they wanted to deliver, to bring to market, and they wanted to compete with the Smiths and Oakleys of the world. But they didn't have quite the quality, and they didn't have the cost of the materials. And so we said, well, instead of trying to be at the low end, which you've already got a product there, instead of trying to be at the high end, why don't you create a mid-price point category product? And they go, well, there's no such category as a mid-price point category. Because you got like $5 glasses or like $100 to $200 glasses. So why don't we create like a $40 to $60 glass and educate the retailers on what the product is and what a great value it is. It's pretty close to competing the high-end glasses, and it's way, way, way better than the cheap ones. So let's create this new mid-price point category. And we knew we had something when we were named by Outdoor Retailer as the #1 mid-price point category. In fact, they said that these guys created the mid-price point category and they're the leader of it. And they did very, very well creating a category and understand what their position was in the marketplace and how to effectively communicate what that position and what that strategy was. So understand where you fit in a crowded landscape and how to effectively communicate what those value points are, package it into a message, and be able to effectively communicate what that is. What's the status of your current brand? Bill? Why do you say that?
Slowly
Slowly going
going down.
down.
Lack of it for lack of activity.
Yeah. You know, and about we get a third. We get clients that are at the startup phase. We get to the clients that are really growing well and just need to revamp it. And the other third are in the what we call the revitalization phase, right? And so how do you revitalize? How do you go back and you redefine where you stand in the competitive landscape? And how do you have to change the perceptions of what people perceive of your product or service and repackage yourself to change the outcome or the current trajectory of your company?
How do you put a new product in the,
How do you do that? This was a new product at the time. You take a look at the market space that you're in, and you say is who's in that marketplace, and I don't care what product or service you have, there are going to be other competitors that are competing for those dollars. They may not have the same exact technology or same exact patents, but there are going to be alternatives for dollars. And you have to understand where those dollars lie in the competitive landscape and competing for dollars. Does that make sense? Give me an example.
well, the product I have is, I'm not aware of any
Okay, what's your name? Ed, speak up for me, Ed.
I'm not aware of any competition in the product that I have.
It doesn't matter if there's competition, there's always perceived competition, whether it's reality or not. Like, it's like the VHS and the Betamax, right?
Right?
They're totally different technologies, totally different products. There's always a competitor. And it may not be for the exact same product, but there's a competitor for the dollar.
I kind of see that share there.
And so your job is what are you competing against in a particular category? Because very few people that are totally different and create a whole different category. In fact, in my career, I've only seen one company in my entire career. And ironically enough, Roger, it was a company they created patent pools. And they managed patent pools. And it was around technology on computers and cell phones. And I go, who's your competition? We don't have any.
What was the product?
It wasn't a product. It was a service company that managed patent pools. All the technology within computers, all the technology in your cell phones, they manage the patent pools. And that's what they do.
That's either being arrogant or naive, I guess. 'Cause, I mean, I at least know enough to say that there's
Well, when
there's
their
an
customers,
alternative, right?
there is an alternative, but
It's not the same exactly, but there's something substitute.
oh, I know, but they were by far and away shoulders head above. But this entire career, I have one example of one category. That's it. Ed, did I answer your question?
Yeah, kind of.
Ask me again in another way.
Well, it's my product. I don't have any other examples of it I can find.
Is there other products that do something similar?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then your challenge is going to be then an educational challenge. Because if there's not a product or a service similar to it, the hardest time is educating the marketplace or your target audience about how and why your product works and how it's a better alternative. Because one of the hardest other things you have to do is educate the marketplace, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of dollars to pave a new marketplace. Because you have to educate, the marketplace or your target markets about what's out there, what's available, and why and how this is a good thing. And usually that takes a lot of time and money.
And that would be like a product that you just don't intuitively know what it does by seeing it.
Right.
This
Let me give a good example. I had this is a number of years ago, but I had a professor at CU call me up and he says, I have a new power generator. totally different. I mean, if you could imagine a box, a square box like this size, a power generator about a sixth of the size of the typical power generators you see now. Totally different technology, totally different way of looking at things. He developed it, had like, I don't know, 12, 15 patents on this damn thing. He got raised enough money to have it produced. And he said, I really can't afford to develop a whole production line, but I can get 3 or 4 of them produced. That's about, and then I'm gonna run out of money. But all I have to do is make a couple prototypes, take it to pretend that we're not pretend. I mean, we were pretty much pretending. We didn't have enough money to really take it to market, but we had enough money to produce 3 or 4 of these damn generators. And he goes, all I want to do is get in front of, there's like 3 or 4 different generator companies out there, and all I really want to do is get in the way of one of these big guys. And we're going to look like we're going to take it to market. We're going to have a website. We're going to get some sales materials. We want a couple of them to believe that we're going to take it to market and really kill their market share. And before we went to the first trade show, the very first day we were at the trade show, we got a call from one of the biggest competitors. He said, I'd like for you guys to consider coming and work with us. And by the end of that trade show, we had a letter of intent. And the big competitor actually bought the technology and pretty much mothballed the technology. I won't say which competitor it was, but Mike got retired after that was done. But he bought it, so he created enough excitement. In a large part of these, the Earth Anchor guy and the guy that made the power generator, we marketed to other big competitors so that we could get acquired. And one of them, they actually didn't kill it off. The Earth Anchors, they didn't kill it off because it was a different type of application of the Earth Anchors. The power generator, the acquiring company killed the technology off, bought it, mothballed it, because they didn't want to, they had factories all around the world producing their current products. And it was too costly to do a retrofit. Oh, way too costly. Way too costly. So it was easier to buy and kill it off. So, but you have to educate either your target audience or a potential suitor of what your product or your technology can do in order to potentially get acquired. That's a long tangent. Did I answer any more of your question?
Yeah, I think so.
I kind of danced around it, didn't I? Big part of it is defining what it is and who the target is and how do you effectively communicate what it is and what the most, you talked about social media. Social media is a great medium these days to be able to effectively communicate what your product or service does, and you can do a lot of viral stuff for very inexpensive to be able to effectively target and reach your target customers. So, anything else, Ed? Okay, allowing your competitors to brand you. Sin number 3. Here's a great example.
That's like in politics, that's a big.
Oh, it's huge, you know, and it is huge. Does this work, by the way?
Turn that one on.
Turn that one
Get
on.
louder.
All right,
That's the PA.
all right. How do I do it?
Just push up.
Okay.
Hello, I'm a Mac. And I'm a PC. Hey, Mac, did you hear the good news? Windows 7 is out, and it's not going to have any of the problems my last operating system had. Trust me. I feel like I've heard this before, PC. What? Windows Vista's here, and it's not going to have any of the problems that Windows XP had. It's not going to have any of the problems that Windows ME had. It's not going to have any of the problems that Windows 98 had. It's not going to have any of the problems Windows 95 had. It's not going to have any of the problems Windows 2 had. Trust me. This time it's going to be different. Trust me.
I love these commercials. They were around for like 10 years. They were one of the most effective advertising campaigns in the early 2000s. And you talk about an effective way to package your competitors. And did anybody know? Actually, let me stop this before it goes on. how big Apple was when they started this campaign and how big Microsoft was? Apple was about $500 million, and Microsoft was about $5 billion. So they were about the 10th of the size. And through the course of this campaign, not only did Apple way far surpass, tenfold grew, but Microsoft declined about 25% in value. And so allowing your competitors to brand and position you is a huge mistake, and I see it all the time. I see it all the time. In fact, there was a job board company here in town that I got a call from the CEO. And he called me up, and they were a job board for industry and trades. And he called me up, and he was so mad. He's like, "Ralph, I need to see you today, and I've got this competitor that has been bashing me in trade and publications, and they've been doing this for the last couple of years now." I go, "Okay." So he goes, "And I'm really pissed because we used to have about a 90% market share on these industry and trade association job boards, and now we're down to like about 45%. And I go, "So your competitors have been bashing you for 2 years, and you've done 0. And this has cost you tens of millions of dollars in business, and you finally woke up one day, I say, I finally had enough." And I told him what he had to do, and he said, "I don't want to do it." And then about 18 months later, they went bankrupt. And it happens, and I see it all the time, especially if you have a good product, a good service, your competitors will go after you and negatively brand and position you. And I've never seen so many upset executives as when their competitors is going after them. And someone mentioned politics. I love political advertising. That's just, I'm crazy. But you see great examples in politics about negatively branding positioning your competitors. And they do it like overnight. And they'll between now and November, you're going to see billions of dollars spent on negative branding and advertising to brand and position competitors. And because they're super, super effective. And the same thing happens corporately as well, too. If you don't take a proactive approach to branding and positioning your company, your product, your service, your competitors will be more than glad to do it for you. And trust me, they will do it for you. Yeah.
You know, I actually remember a time, I'm 60, so I remember a time when you did not do that on TV in commercials where you did not name your competitor.
Yeah.
And it wasn't done, you know, Pepsi,
Well,
whatever it was.
and it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It doesn't matter because Donald Trump has made a living off of negative advertising and negative branding of his competition. And he would not exist if it wasn't for the change in the political correctness of today's time. Because he's breaking all the rules when it comes to branding position your competitors. And he's done it and done it very, very effectively. And you love him, hate him, doesn't matter. He is a media genius, and he's a branding and positioning genius. And his whole campaign, actually, I don't know, I read a thing in the Wall Street Journal a week or 2 ago about how much free advertising time he's got. And it's 12 times what Hillary's gotten because of this type of going after.
Spent way less.
Oh, he spent less than like $10 million. Total. It's crazy.
In politics, that's called earned media.
Absolutely. But it's amazing how he's gotten and utilized earned media. But he knows how to utilize brand and position. And so the lesson here is, how can we brand and position ourselves proactively? How can we educate the marketplace about what our brand, what our package, and what our technology is, so that our competition doesn't do it for us?
Without becoming Donald Trump.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, secret number 3, separate yourself, be the best, or know your space. You have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play better than anyone else, Albert Einstein. And that's what branding and positioning is. You have to understand the rules of the game and how to effectively communicate who you are and what you're all about, but also how to be able to effectively take it to market. I'm sorry, I keep getting away. Oh, here we go. Here's another example. Should load.
They're charging bags to the ground, you know, they're not even trying to hide it. Bag fees in progress, let's move.
Oh, come on. So you have to understand and know how and why you're better than the competition and how to effectively communicate them. Southwest has done a fantastic job of being able to effectively communicate that they don't charge a bag fee. Now, they're not the cheapest airline, and you actually can't really even buy their tickets on most of the travel sites. You have to go straight to Southwest Airlines, and that's how they do it, is because they don't pay travel agencies or other travel websites to be able to book the fare. So you have to go direct, but they use that money to pay for free bags. And they know how to package that and communicate how and why they're better than the competition. And they do a great job of effectively communicating how they're better than the competition. And you got to know how to communicate it. So some of the things people do is utilization of technology, features of benefits, your business model, how can you disrupt your space or be the expert in your space that you're better, your product's better, your service is better. Be able to know how to be able to effectively communicate what these things are and how you're better than the competition. Here's some things that don't work though too. Oh, hold on. I'll tell you what the ones that aren't. Tell me what you hear all the time. Why you're better than the competition. Come on, what's the things we hear all the time? Cheaper. What's that? Cheaper. Yeah, but I don't position any of my clients as cheaper. Better coverage. They have better value, okay? I don't like to play the price game. The what? Better coverage like the cell companies. Yeah, but they all say that. But which ones do we hear? We have better experience. We have better people. I want to hear someone advertise and say our people are crappy. Okay?
But it's kind of the soft stuff, right? It's not.
It's the soft stuff. We have better customer service. We have better people, right? We have better experience. We have, we know more. And those things don't count unless you could effectively package it and be able to effectively communicate and quantify those things.
But they do, unless you ask. 4 times better,
And they do that. Yeah, they do.
4 times better. 4 times better than what?
But that's why. But very few of them really work, though. Better than what's a great example. You see the one with the balls coming down the thing, and they go to the thing. Exactly. And then one of them, I think that was Verizon, and then Sprint copied the same damn thing. And they're all, yeah.
But then now they have another guy that's doing the exact same thing, saying, hey,
But those things don't really count, and they don't gain traction. They really don't, unless you could package something that's going to communicate how and why you're better than the competition. So you have to understand and to be able to effectively communicate how and why you're better than the competition. So how and why are you better than the competition? And maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but 80% of the companies out there do not do a good job of effectively communicate how and why they're better than the competition. They say, this is what we do, and 9 times out of 10, they're exactly what their competitors do. They are no better. They haven't been able to effectively package, position, come up with new and innovative ways of products or services, be able to effectively communicate why they're better than the competition. And in fact, most companies, most technologies, most inventions don't get funded because they can't communicate how and why their technology or their patents are better than the competition or what's already out there. So you have to understand what that is. Oh, here's the things that don't count. Customer service, our people, integrity, quality, knowledge, experience. Those are the things that don't count. And I hear them every single day. And I say, if you're going to say one of these things, like let's take people. I had a construction firm, they said, we got great people that really care. And I go, when was the last time you heard a company that says our people don't care? Everybody says that their people care. Come on, you got to be more original. If you see you got great people, we've got more LEED certified, which is the green technology type of thing. We have more LEED certified people. We've got more blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
I always found it was interesting, like when King Soopers employees went on strike, and their saying was, it's our people. It's like, well, they're going on strike because they're not paying enough to their people. That's supposedly are much better than the other people.
Yeah,
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't pay those people.
Safeway's people suck, but ours really care. I mean, come on. Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. So sin number 4, being average, bland, and boring. And I see a lot of this. Here's an example. Actually, let me pause this. This one's one that's not very loud. This is actually voted one of the most boring commercials out there. No, seriously. I don't know if I can get this. That didn't help, does it? No, I don't know why. Yeah. Anyway, it's a really boring guy talking about really boring. And he's horrible, and he shouldn't be talking. But I see it all the time, and I see it in broadcast media, radio and TV. I see it in print all the time. And figure out how you can be different and innovative and say a different message without being super boring. And I see it all the time. Here's what we do. And why does what you do any better than your competition unless you be able to brand yourself, package yourself, and differentiate yourself? So make it fun and appealing. I don't care what you do. You have to make what you do some sort of fun or make it appealing, make it appeal to a sense, which, what are the things that people appeal to people typically?
10 things?
What's that?
How many things?
No, what are the things that appeal to people
Oh, I
typically?
thought you said there were 10 things.
No.
Okay.
Which are the things that appeal to people? Usually around what?
Fun?
It's fun,
Something they utilize themselves as.
time, money, save them time, make them money, save them money. It's usually around one of their primary senses. And so make whatever you do appeal to their one of them senses. Make them more money, save them more money. Make them more productive, make them more efficient.
Right.
Safer, exactly. Which is the car company that has the safest cars. That's brand and position that. Bingo. Volvo is brand and position themselves as the safest car out there. That's what they own. They own that market share. That's what they are. And so what a lot of the moms drive? Volvos to protect their kids.
And actually, if I understand it correctly, a lot of other car companies have caught up to Volvo safety-wise a long time ago, but Volvo owns that.
They still own it. And you know what's amazing to me is there's a lot of companies that they say it, they may not necessarily be true, not just about safety, but they brand and package it themselves because is the best technology or the best safety or this or that. And it's really, man, I can't tell you how many times I've come across companies go, they're full of crap. Their product sucks. And I go, well, they do a better job of communicating with their targets about the quality of their product or service.
Do you think fear falls into that subject too?
Absolutely. I love the fear sell. I do.
Like sell beer and
You sell fear. have to appeal to one of their primal senses. Fear is one of them. And you see a lot of scare tactics in the political advertising, don't you? If you go for so-and-so, you're going to, take away your guns, or not allow you to abort your babies, or whatever it is. I mean, it's fear, 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 fear.
And then the picture goes black
Oh,
and white,
yeah,
and the music gets
exactly.
dark.
Exactly. And both sides do it, and both sides do an effective job of it, but fear is definitely a motivator. Let me give an example of making fun of appealing. Oh, I love this section first. Sex appeal is 50% of what you've got, and 50% of people think you've got. And that's what brand and packaging and positioning is all about, is packaging and painting the perception. If you buy my product or service, this is what you could get. And it's painting that visual representation of what you could get by buying my product or service. And great branding and great packaging does exactly that. Here's another great example. So before I play the commercial, this is one that's been around. Actually, they just announced within the last month that they're retiring him.
They got another commercial out with him leaving Mars.
What's that?
They got another commercial out, he leaves to Mars.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's his favorable commercial. But does anybody know how well this guy's been they've been advertising him for using him as a spokesperson for 10 years.
And it's only relatively recently, in those 10 years, that I've really taken notice of him, so, you got me.
But you weren't their ideal target market, to be honest with you.
True that.
Who was their ideal target market?
Younger crowd.
No.
No?
No.
Just the beer.
Domestics go after the younger crowd. This is an import beer, more of a premium product, more of a premium price. Who is their target audience?
40-somethings.
Really, I mean, gee, don't be offended, but it was middle-aged white guys who live boring lives.
40-somethings.
But no, really, I mean, it was middle-aged white guys who live boring lives and had extra income to spend on a premium beer. And so what they did was they knew who their target customer, we talked about earlier, they knew who their ideal target customer was, and they painted the world's most interesting man who lived a really interesting life, and guys like us who work 9 to 5 and have a home and a wife and kids and a Volvo and all these other things only wished we could live like this guy.
Well, and he's got the two women on the side, it's like, buy the car, get the girl.
Buy the beer, get the girls. Exactly. I'll play this and I'll tell you the results.
So what do you know about the performance of that? Did Dos Equis shoot right up?
So over the course of the last 10 years, the product has grown fivefold. So if you would not spend that much on advertising and pay this gentleman that much in royalties and appearance fees, and for 10 years if it wasn't producing great results. And they did. They've grown fivefold. In fact, over the last 10 years that it ran, they outperformed all other beers, period.
Is there a particular, well, there must be a particular reason why they're retiring this campaign.
They just felt that they had grown so much over so long that they're not killing the concept away. They're still going to stay with the world's most interesting. This is what they say. I don't know if it's reality, but they just came out, and I read an article about it the last couple of weeks. They said that they're keeping the concept, but they're introducing the new world's most interesting man. But he's probably going to be a little younger. But they're not killing the concept. So we'll see. I don't know who knows? They rolled it out, and they haven't rolled it out yet, but they announced the plans. And they did a big farewell, they're sending him to Mars, I think it was. Yeah.
He's aged out,
He's aged out pretty much. Yeah, he has.
My wife said she read something about him that he wasn't even the original guy. He was a girlfriend or dating a producer or something.
No. So this is a great story, actually. So he went to the casting call for the commercials 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was. And he called up his agent and he said, "You made a mistake because I'm like twice anybody else's age here at the casting call." agent said to him, he said, "You are the world's most interesting man. They just don't know it yet." No, seriously. And so he went in there, read the script, and did the thing, and they go, "We're done. This is the guy that's the world's he is the most interesting man." But he totally thought that his agent was crazy for even sending him on this. In reality, the guy lived on a boat at the time in New York City. Lived on a boat, had traveled around the world. He has this whole thing about it. He's traveled around the world and lived this whole interesting life. So he really was this guy. And he played the part, and he knew the part, and he did such a great job. He convinced the people of Dos Equis that he was that guy, and they hired him. And it's been a great campaign for 10 years.
He wouldn't be afraid to show his feminine side if he had one. His mother has a tattoo that reads, "Son." At museums, he's allowed to touch the art. He is the most interesting man in the world. I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis. Stay thirsty, my friends.
And what's interesting about this campaign, they were going after middle-aged white guys who wish they had a more interesting life. But they rolled this out, and this guy appealed to all demographics, male and female, young and old. He was the grand slam of advertising figures. And you normally don't get that, because normally you're going to go after one segment of the population. And so, but he was the guy that did such a great job, because they nailed it, and he appealed to everybody, which was what made it so successful. So how to make it fun appealing? Know what appeals to your target customers. Use multiple creative mediums. Develop a sales-driven marketing campaign and make it fun and memorable. Okay. All right. So how can you package your message and make it fun, appealing to your target customers? Okay, number 5, not staying connected with your customers. This was just a couple years ago, but did anybody know what the sin that these guys made?
What's that?
Do you know, anybody know the sin or the mistake that Maker's Mark did with their brand? Just a couple years ago, they had a production problem. They couldn't keep up with demand. And so they decided that they were going to water down their alcohol. And so that they sent out a memo to all their distributors saying that, "Don't worry, we've addressed the production problem. We're going to water down the alcohol and only change a couple percentage points of the proof in order to be able to fulfill demand." So that email that was supposed to be secret in the days of social media, how long did that take to get online? And guess how long it took for the company to reverse course? What's that?
About 2 minutes.
It took them 2 days, actually, okay? It took them 2 days to reverse course and say that we value our relationship with you, Mr. Customer. We're not going to tamper with the product because we value you and the relationship you have with our product. We're sorry. Please forgive us, and we'll never do this again.
It's like New Coke.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But make sure that you're protecting your brand. Number 5, create great brand experiences. A brand isn't just about a product or a logo or a website. It's about how you market it, how you sell it, how you fulfill it, and how you stand behind your product or your service. It's about the entire experience a customer has with your brand. So make sure you understand that and protect it. Okay? A brand is not a product or a promise or a feeling. It's the sum of all the experiences you have with a company. And that's what a brand is. It's the entire experience. Here's a good example, American Express. They came up with this Small Business Saturday about 4 or 5 years ago now. And they did it as a way to connect with their customers. And why did they do that? Anybody know? Guess who most of the customers for American Express is?
And small business owners.
Small business owners, exactly. But what was the problem they were having with those small business owners? Most small businesses didn't like to process the cards. Even though they had it themselves, most small businesses didn't like to pay the fees associated with the cards because they're quite a bit more than Visa and MasterCard. So they go, why don't we come up with a campaign to push business back to small businesses as a way to say thank you to them and want them to be able to accept the card. And so they came up with Small Business Saturday. When is Small Business Saturday? Anybody know?
Right before Thanksgiving.
Right after. It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It's the Saturday 2 days after Thanksgiving. That is now Small Business Saturday. And you know you've done a pretty good job of effectively packaging this promotion when you had President Obama tweeting on your behalf and say, make sure you go shop small at Small Business Saturday. I mean, you get the President of the United States to promote your promotion? That's pretty phenomenal.
See, I thought it was much broader than American Express.
They started the whole
I
thing.
didn't know that.
They started the whole thing. Here it is.
You get your coffee here.
Oh, sorry.
You get your coffee here. You get your haircut here. You find that certain thing you were looking for here. But actually, you get so much more. When you shop at these small local businesses, you support all the things that make your community great. The money you spend here stays here, in this place you call your neighborhood. Small Business Saturday is November 30th. Get out and shop.
So yeah, they started it. And it's been ongoing now. They just finished up their 5th year, and it's wildly successful. And now it's everywhere, and everybody uses it. And you know you have a super successful campaign that communicates the entire experience when it's so on. So some people don't even know that they created it, but it's them, and it's all about them.
For me, that would be like having Peyton Manning wearing one of my sweatshirts.
Yeah, exactly.
The way that they got Obama doing that.
So I say that brands are holistic in nature. You just have to create your brand value promise and be able to know what that is and how to effectively communicate what that is. How to align and train your staff with the people within your company what that brand value promise is. How to create great brand experiences. How to spread the word and how to reward referrals for people sharing about who you are and what you're all about. And the experience is not only in your marketing, but in your sales, but also in your operations or how you deliver your product or service. And it has to be holistic in nature to be able to effectively create and deliver these brand experiences. All right? So how can you survey, and if you don't have customers, how can you survey the marketplace to make sure you understand the marketplace and make sure your customers, you're going to win them or satisfy them or make them customers in the future. Make sure you really understand what they're looking for and what a great experience is going to look like for them. Okay? Okay, sin number 6, not executing. So, a couple years ago, they had a little problem. Why are you guys laughing? Do you know the sin that they made? Not the actual spill sin, but you know the actual execution sin they made.
Not responding quickly enough?
No.
No?
When they went on to say I'm sorry.
We're
sorry. You know, we created $1 billion, multi-billion-dollar catastrophe.
It wasn't that. You know what it was, though? They had a PR strategy. They had a PR strategy, and they had a whole PR protocol if they had a problem. And what do you do first and foremost? You stand up and you say, I'm sorry. And they did not follow the protocol. They didn't execute their PR strategy that they spent tens of millions of dollars to prepare, and they refused to execute that strategy.
They did the old-fashioned one, which is deny.
Yes, we know why, and I'll tell you in a second here. And you know what's real? Oh, I'm not going to show this one. Hold on. It's this one. And you know what's really bad?
To all those affected, I want to say
This is South Park, by the way.
deeply sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. Sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. Sorry. We're sorry. I'm deeply sorry. Sorry.
You know it's really bad when you fail to execute and you just murder your brand when you don't execute your own strategy. And for them, that's exactly what they did. Failed to do was they failed to execute their own strategy of standing up and saying they were sorry.
Was it directly on that guy who eventually got transferred?
You got fired. Tony Hayward, the CEO, who was this guy, got fired. But do you know how much market value the company lost during the period of time? Yeah, they lost $5 billion in capital value.
So my question is, under Tony Hayward, the question is why?
Because he was too busy and he was too important to be able to stand up and say he was sorry. In fact, oh, hold on.
And he said he missed his time on his yacht.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He missed his time on the yacht, and it was below him to be able to address this. In fact, they caught him, and he was racing yachts in New York Harbor. It was multi-million-dollar yachts, and he goes, "I'm too busy, and I'm doing way too more important things than to be able to address the situation of the Gulf." And it ended up costing the company about $5 billion. And it cost him his job after about, 6 to 8 months. And so your brand is so precious, you have to be able to execute and protect your customers, and protect your image by executing your strategy to be able to protect your brand. Secret number 6, spread the word and make it happen. The thing I see about successful entrepreneurs, and I call them brand champions, are one that own the brand, own making it happen. Okay? They personally take responsibility for the success of their invention, of their product, of their services, and they are committed to making it happen. Let me give an example. Oh, some people want it to happen, some people wish it would happen, others make it happen. Michael Jordan. And this is what I see with inventors and with entrepreneurs all the time. A lot of people wish it happened, a lot of people want it to happen, but very few make it happen. Let me give an example. The UFC, anybody know what they were famous for? Over the last, 7, 8 years, it became one of the fastest growing sports in the world.
Championship? I can't.
The Ultimate Fighting Championship of the UFC, who promotes MMA, mixed martial arts. A guy named Dana White, who was the CEO of the UFC, when he first took over the company, the UFC was $40 million in debt. You had different senators and people in the government saying that was the equivalent of human cockfighting. And he took it on personally to be able to go out and improve the brand and the image of mixed MMA or mixed martial arts in the UFC, and owned the brand, his personal mission was connect with the politicians, connect with the target audiences, go out, promote the fights, connect with the fans, and change the reputation of the brand and the sport. And he went on a mission to champion this brand. And over the last several years, it became the biggest, most fastest growing sport in the world. And it's amazing what you see now with UFC and MMA. To the point now where Dana White is it's no longer a small sport. He's no longer $40 million in debt. In fact, he has a personal net worth over $500 million. And they still are one of the dominant sports. And it really, really helps when you have a female fighter who, the likes that no one's ever seen, that became a worldwide sensation as well, too. But he took on the brand and he championed it and he made it happen in spite of unsurmountable odds. And this is what I see with other brand champions, is the successful people that have a great idea, a great product, a great service. To your point, Roger, earlier, is they don't make it happen. And you have to execute in order to take your idea and turn it into a reality. And there's very, very few people that succeed, especially like you all, unless you are committed like he was in order to make it happen. And that's what it takes to be successful. So you have to understand what your marketing and sales process looks like. You know, who your target audience is, you know, what your database is, and what the tool you use, what CRM or customer relationship management system you're going to utilize, and what the mediums are you're going to be able to connect with your target audience, what the right mix of those are, and effectively lay out a process and a plan and know how many touches you're going to utilize over what period of time in order to be able to reach them, get your message out to them, and educate them about your product or service. Does anybody know how many times you have to touch a prospect so they can make a decision about potentially buying your product or service? It says statistics say between 7 and 15 times throughout the course of the year. So you're on the low end. It used to be 3 or 4, but nowadays it's way, way more. And you can't use one medium all the time. I see all the time, they go, I'm using emails. You have to use multiple mediums throughout the course of the year with multiple calls to action that's going to appeal to different people at different times in order to get their attention and get them to take action, respond to you, call you, email you. And so you have to map out, know what are the right mediums over what period of time and what's the right calls to action to be able to get them to listen to you, take action, respond to you, work with you. And you need to know what this marketing and sales process looks like too. And if you don't know it, you need to map it out and say, here's what the mediums are and here's how we're going to use to be able to effectively communicate what that message is. Okay. So know what it takes to reach your goals and objectives. Develop a repeatable and scalable marketing sales process to reach your target customers. Know your numbers and how to cheat them. And what I mean by that is, it's the typical funnel. You make 100 calls to get 10 leads, to get 3 appointments, to get 1 set. And I don't care what your numbers look like, every single person has to know what their numbers are. And you can get a strategic partner or a strategic advisor that makes a referral in for you. That's how you cheat your numbers. You shorten the sales process. Because you get an industry person in the press or in the industry says, I did a product review and I love the product. That's a path to helping get your product accepted faster. Know your numbers, how to cheat them. Consistently execute. Consistently. It's 7 to 15 touches. Guess how many companies, how many people give up after most of the time? Most people give up after 2 to 3 touches. So you have to consistently execute throughout the course of the year and not give up. You have to have faith in your process, have faith in your message, have faith in your product or service. And then you have to track and measure your progress to make sure that you're getting the results that you want to get. And if you're not getting it, you have to pivot. And that happens all the time. Things aren't going the way you want it to go, so you have to alter and change your message or change your mediums. You have to do something different. And we see it all the time. We have to do it all the time ourselves because not everything's perfect. It's not always an exact science. But you have to be smart and you have to know what works and what doesn't work. All right. How are you going to spread the word and make it happen about your product, your service, your company? Okay, but sin number 7, not involving growth. It's hard to believe. It's really hard to believe, but less than 10 short years ago, who owned about a 90% share of the smartphone marketplace? BlackBerry owned 90% share of the marketplace. It's less than 10 years ago. You think it's like a dinosaur, right? Might as well be in a museum. It's like such ancient news.
I wondered if it was still around after.
They really are still around. Because you know why? Because they're in a lot of developing countries around the world. They have a minuscule market share here. They're actually still one of the more secure devices, besides Hillary's BlackBerry, but besides that. But no, really, they still are in a lot of governments because they're one of the more secure things, and they're in a lot of governments, not only in the United States, but around the world, but they're in a lot of other foreign countries, and they own a lot of market share in third world countries. So they're still around, not so relevant, but they didn't evolve, they didn't grow, they didn't change. They're a lot like Blockbuster, which we talked about earlier. They didn't evolve and grow. And when you have a problem, you've got to be able to change and adapt. You have to stay ahead of the pack. And every company, you talked about, if you're not succeeding, if you need a revitalization, we see it all the time. Companies need to be revitalized. Products or services need to be revitalized, rebranded, repositioned, repackaged in order to stay competitive. Here's an example. Oh, this is great. Disneyland will never be completed. They will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world. Walt Disney knew and understand that you can't stay static. You have to continue to evolve and grow as a brand, as a product, as a theme park in order to be relevant. Starbucks. Little does people know, but a couple of years ago, they had ran into problems. Wall Street says they overextended themselves. They lost their magic. And so what did they do? Anybody read that book, what they did? Wall Street called up and convinced Howard Schultz to come back out of retirement.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Wall Street called Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, and convinced him to come back out of retirement. Because they lost their mojo. They were getting declining results. Their stock price would take a beating. And they said, you need to come back out of retirement and lead the company because we've lost faith in the company and the brand. You have to reinvent themselves. So you know the very first thing they did? They put a sign on the stores and they shut down every single one of the stores. You know what he said they did it for? Because they said they lost connection with their customers. They go, we put so much focus on our brand and the automation of the brand and the product that we lost touch with the customers. So we're going to close down every single store for the same exact afternoon and re-educate baristas on how to make a great cup of coffee, but just as more important is how to deliver the brand experience that we had become known for. And he had to get back to the roots and reconnect with their customers in order to evolve and change as a company and get back on the trajectory that they should be on. And the other thing that they did was they made a commitment to social media and reusing social media to connect with their customers and find out what the customers really wanted. And they took it to heart and they became one of the best brands of all of social media because they cared about their customers and they were connected with their customers to get feedback and gain the pulse of what the customers really wanted. So what does a strong brand allow you to do? Charge a premium for your product or service. I like brands because I hate selling on price. I like creating a brand with a great value so you can charge a premium for your product or service. or at least not have to be the cheapest player to get customers. Position yourself as a leader in your space, whether it be about service or technology or whatever the experience. Own a market share, become an innovator in your space, attract and retain and attract great employees, and sell your company, retire, whatever you want to do. Brands are hugely important for your success. And being able to package your ideas to be able to get capital or sell the concept, be able to raise that money, or to be able to sell the product into distribution channels is hugely important. And a brand will allow you to help to accomplish those goals and objectives.
How do you, when you're branding something, I mean, is there companies that help you with names for things?
Yeah.
What would they be called? Really specialize in?
Branding. We come out, in fact, I'm presenting concepts on a SaaS company tomorrow. They have a name, but the name doesn't effectively communicate their target audience. They name the product, but when in development of the product, the actual product itself doesn't align with what they originally called it. And so it evolved, the product evolved, and what they thought it was originally is not where they gained traction. And where they gained traction isn't the same market they had envisioned it for. And so we have to come up with a new name. And we have to do that all the time. The other one, to Roger's point, I cannot tell you how many times, if you do not own your patent, your trademark, register your name, I've been paid a lot of money in the last several years to redo company names or product names because they failed to get their intellectual property rights secured. In fact, I'll mention one right now. We rebranded what was called Marco's Coal-Fired Pizza. I rolled out right before the holidays, rebranded their name as Rocca's. Because there was a Marco's Pizza, a national brand that owned the name national, that didn't own the name here in the state. My guys owned the name in the state, but couldn't protect it nationally. So the national competitor came in, they tried to put each other out, they couldn't put each other out of business. And my guy goes, well, our product is so much better than these national guys have a crappy product. And I don't want to be associated with their crappy product. I can't put them out of business, they can't put me out of business. My only alternative, he came to us and said, what should we do? I go, you should change your name. You can't put them out of the business, they can't put you out of business, but do you want to go down because you're associated with the crappy product? No, you don't want to be associated with that, so you change your name. And he goes, crap, I had the chance to be able to buy the name nationally a couple of years ago, and I'm killing myself now. And it happens all the time. I mean, we've rebranded companies and packaging names of a product or service a lot the last several years because they failed to protect their intellectual property rights. So it's hugely critical to make the investment to protect the name and protect your rights. Or get your URL is the other huge deal too. All right? Yeah.
I mean, what's the main way of actually doing that? Logo, I mean, copyright the logo? I mean,
That's a Roger question. That's an,
I mean, just in general, what are the ways to protect your...
copyright's the cheapest. It's the cheapest, right?
And design patent, and
Yeah.
they have overlap, and plus design,
Yeah.
we can do a thing called trade dress, trademarks.
Yeah.
too, which can be more broadly encompassing, but there's a lot of different protections you put in to give you different angles of coverage.
What's the average cost?
That could be anything. There's another seminar just on that.
600 for a filing, like a federal filing, and then, there's renewals and stuff over this line, because they last forever. You usually renew every 10 years.
So it's not a really big expenditure.
Oh, it can be.
Compared to what you invest in the brand when you, promote it and everything.
Exactly.
And that's how you give the trademark value, because the better known it is, the more value it has.
So I've got another a bath products company that I'm working with right now. They actually own their name around the country, but they do not own it outside of the United States. And they're getting a lot of demand, and there's distribution channels like Amazon and eBay that are selling their products internationally, and their products are being shipped around the world. And so, as their German company owns the same name and owns the other rights around the world, and so the German company's going after them because they're seeing their products around the world. And they've been in a 2-year long, too bad it's not your client, been in a 2-year long patent and trademark battle over a name. And our recommendation is probably a hell of a lot cheaper to come up with a new name and brand and package it than try to go 3 years. I asked them how much their legal bill is. They projected out in their budget. They go, they said
Changing your name is way more.
way cheaper. He said he thinks it's going to be between a quarter million and $500,000 to be able to fight the legal battle. Or he goes, or I could, and there's no guarantees, or else I could spend the money with you and come up with a new name and own everything, and it's hell of a lot cheaper. So.
That's, a strategy that can happen, like if you do a name domestically, you wanna get foreign rights secured before it becomes well known, because there's predators
Yeah.
outside the country that if they see a name getting popular, they'll get it and hold it.
Especially in China.
Yeah.
We had that before too.
And the domain name.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how will you ensure your brand stays relevant and ahead of the pack? Last question here. And if it's not, what do you have to do to get it back so it's relevant? All right, and the last thing I want you to do is I want you to be able to track your KPIs or your key performing indicators and make sure that what you're doing is working.
That's like the big data stuff, right?
Exactly. So track and make sure that you're using a baseline of where you're at now and where you want to be, and what are the measurements or your key performing indicators you're going to track along the way to make sure that you're performing towards your goals and objectives, and that you're getting return on your investment that you want to get. All right, thank you. Questions? I know I took more time, but
That's great.
questions? Anybody have questions?
Yeah, could you, specifically, I was listening to so intently, the pithy, things you had for SIN 3 and 5, could you read the figure of the and I'll write it down?
What if I knew off the top of my head? I should know.
I was watching what you were presenting.
Yeah, no worries. SIN 3
Yeah.
is, allowing your competitors to brand you, SIN 3.
I'm sorry, Tim?
Allowing your competitors to brand you.
Oh, right, oh, yeah.
You can forget that. That's the political one, right?
Right,
And SIN 5.
yes.
Oh, not failure to execute on your brand. Oh, not staying connected with your customers, excuse me.
Oh, right, okay.
Not staying connected with your customers.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I've got a question on
Yeah.
the guy with the new unique generator.
yeah.
Would he have been better off to try to build that business himself?
Couldn't get the capital. There's no
Just
way.
needed a lot of capital.
You know, to build a couple prototypes that he built, it was $200,000. But to be able to take the generators and build a production line and do a mass production of the generators was tens of millions of dollars. And,
He just didn't want to try to get that funding.
you know, he was like, he goes, I'll do it if that's what it takes to do it, we'll do it. And he goes, because if I get, he got enough patents on his technology but we pretty much went into it thinking that we were going to sell the technology. I'm on the board for the Colorado Advanced Manufacturing Alliance, the biggest manufacturing trade organization here. And to be able to do something like that is just monumental. The production cost to be able to not only build the product, but build the assembly line. It's a huge, huge, huge undertaking, and it's just phenomenally expensive. So our strategy was really never to build a production facility to do it. We were either going to do one or two things. We were going to license out and get royalties on the technology was our preference, but he got such a good offer to buy the technology outright that he said, I'm done.
It's just a shame though, they just like backshelved it, right?
But that,
Isn't that what it's all about?
I mean,
I mean, hasn't that been
it happens.
American life?
You can't, they buy it, they could do whatever they want with it, right?
Right?
And that's exactly what happens.
How many automotive patents are like that?
Oh, tons of patents like that. I mean, great example is you take a look on transportation and you talk about how many of the auto companies, the oil companies, and the tire companies put out, like in Denver or Los Angeles, subways or light rail systems around the country. They put those businesses out of business. And now how many of the cities like Denver are trying to redevelop it again? But they put them out of business.
Yeah, when you think about Denver, like, the old parts, there was all the tracks that had.
Oh, yeah, tracks everywhere.
It's like, we had mass transit and they killed it off, now it's kind of coming back.
Yeah, but it's billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
What other questions do you have? Any other questions?
What kind of things do you see working really good with the social media?
Be more specific, please.
Well, I mean, like Facebook, you said why businesses say, follow me on Twitter or whatever,
Yeah.
find us on Facebook.
Everybody I love Twitter, but that's just me. I love that because you can see news real time. I mean, if you, like, take for instance, today was Saturday, and today was a huge news day, not only here in Colorado, but all around the world. Anybody know what happened? Because it started on Twitter on Saturday night.
The Panama Papers.
No. The GOP convention in Colorado Springs. And it was actually still on Drudge right now. It's the #1 story. In fact, I'll show it to you real quick. But it made national and international news. And so I happen to love it. I don't know if I have it or not. But, I'll show you though. It's probably still up there. Yeah, here it is. GOP Colorado. We did it, never Trump. And this is, they have how many tens of millions of unique visitors around the world go to drudge.com. And so this whole thing about the Colorado GOP is a huge deal. And this is all started, this came out Saturday night and became a huge international story because of what happened on social media. It's on Drudge and it's on all these major news stations. And so it's the power of social media. And here's the other thing. I start with content. I recommend every single one of my clients to create content, write tips and articles and hints. Position yourself, your product or service as an authority on a particular space, a particular product, a particular whatever. And then use that content in Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And repurpose that content not only on social media but on your blog and website, because if you utilize content on your blog and website, it's going to help with your organic results as well as your if you do any PPC or pay-per-click as well too. But so create content is the #1 thing, because Google and all your search engines reward for content. Fresh content on a consistent basis, and then repurpose and repackage that content on all the different social media. I never used to be a big blogger. I like blogs every single week now, pretty much every week. And I use that content. We put that content on the blog on our website because it helps with our organic search results, #1. And then #2, we repurpose that content in social media.
What about like Amazon, eBay?
What about, those are e-tailers. So those are e-tailers.
Well, a lot of them now, like, you look at like Amazon, and they basically say they help you advertise and.
Well, okay, so caution on that. I've got my bath products company. They're doing wildly successful on Amazon and eBay. The only problem is it is not them. It's their product, but but it is not their brand. They're manufacturing so much private label product that they wish they had not let the genie out of the bottle. Because they sold so much of it, but the eBays and Amazons take such a huge cut that they're making so much more profit off the product that they are themselves. And so they hired us to create their own brand that they can sell wholesale direct or retail direct to consumers. Instead of giving up 30 to 40 percentage points, they want to keep that 30 to 40 percentage points themselves. And so that's the number one reason why this bath company is coming to us, is to squelch their business, which is wildly successful, and they make pretty good money, but not great money. And so they're hiring us to squelch that business, build their own brand, get consumers going direct to their own website or direct to their retail stores or direct to other boutiques or websites around the web, because they're giving up 30, 40 points to Amazon and eBay. Word of caution. They wish they get requests to do probably 5 to 10 million products each and every year that they say no to, because it's just not worth it. It's almost becoming commoditized. And so they hired us to bring a position to decommoditize their product. And the other problem is, it's become so commoditized they can't do the production. They'd rather manufacture less, make a higher profit margin. They probably could do a quarter amount of the business direct and make a hell of a lot more money than what they're doing today. But they don't have a brand. And so therefore no one can find them. Yeah.
Switching subjects.
Yeah.
You get involved with any of your clients, young clients, new people in crowdfunding?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm just gonna get rid of this. Yeah, the really successful ones. You'll do a little video, and you'll do a little thing on. We've got one of my commercial real estate clients. There's a website called RealCrowd, and it's for investing in commercial real estate. Yeah, but we did a marketing campaign and got them on RealCrowd, and it cost them a fair amount of money because it's not cheap. But they got a handful of investors. I can't tell you how many, but they more than paid for itself within the first 3 to 6 months. And one of the investors with a 20-something entrepreneur out of Texas, which was not, trust me, on our ideal target list, but through a crowdfunding site like that, absolutely.
What would you recommend somebody starting advertising with a small budget?
That's $1 million question right there. I mean, who's your target? What appeals to them, and then if you know who your target is, then we can figure out what the most effective way to reach them is, and then what the most effective medium is, and then you can utilize. Traditionally it's going to be a combination of, it depends on what the product is and because some of it's B2B, the B2B ones, or business to business. If it's a business product, it's a totally different than a consumer. So if you're going after a consumer, it's $1 million difference. B2B is, you go a lot of times to industry or trade associations or trade shows, or get distribution channels and you figure it out that way. Or going after consumer, which is going to be more public relations or public relations works for both B2B and B2C. But if it's a consumer product, it's a lot more direct. You can utilize like social media or pay-per-click or content. But it just depends on. You'd have to be more specific and I can tell you more.
Where did you start?
Okay, so that's a great question. So here's what we typically do. We'll start what we call go-to-market plan. So you'll say is, we got this product or this service, and here's our target audience. Actually, I'll help you out with that 1 second. Let me do this again.
I'm going to turn this back on.
Oh, sorry. Start with the go-to-market plan and identify who your targets are. Your suspects or prospects, who they are, what they look like, industry or a demographic of an individual or demographic, what a corporation looks like. And then figure out, based on who they are, what's the most effective medium to reach them. Okay? And then once you figure out the most effective medium to reach them, figure out what the most effective message within that medium that's going to capture their attention. Identify what the call to action is going to be, and then figure out, what we call the secret sauce of the magic formula of what mediums, how many times with the right message over what period of time is going to produce the right result. And there's tools out there like, on your website. Let's assume you have a website for a second. Make sure you got your Google Analytics set up. All your social media mediums have analytics, like Twitter has analytics, Facebook has analytics. They all have analytics that you can plug into your website or track on social media. And so you track the effectiveness of all these different mediums. And if you use email, let's say you use email, most of your email service providers can give you analytics and tell you sent out 1,000 emails and you had a 10% open rate, and of the 10% open rate, you had a click-through rate of X, and you had a conversion of X. And then you just quantify and say we spent, of those 1,000 emails, we paid so much to get the email created and the campaign created, and we spent so much on the email blast, and we got, I don't know, a couple $1,000 or whatever the number, it could be anything. And what kind of conversion did we get, or what's your cost per acquisition? And then figure out what your return on your investment is. And it depends on how expensive your product is or service is, or how long you keep your product or service is. I got some clients that, construction clients say, their project could be $50 to $100 million. They can spend a lot to get a client. All right? I got other clients, I have like a popcorn manufacturer. You got to be pretty damn efficient because selling a bottle of popcorn is like $1. So you cannot spend a lot. So you have to be very efficient, and so you have to utilize the different mediums appropriate for your product or service. You just have to figure out what that is. Questions? But start with a go-to-market plan. Map out your targets, map out the mediums, map out the message, map out this whole process. When you get a lead, what do you do with the lead? Do you pick up the phone? Do they order online? Do you have a distributor that you work with that goes out and does a demo, or do an online demo of the product or the service? And then you figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. But put together a go-to-market plan. All right?
Can I just go after the biggest phone company and send my product to Donald Trump?
What's that? You got to speak up.
I said, can I just go after the biggest phone company and send my product to Donald Trump? More good.
Hey, I speak of the bath company I talk about. They got to go on, they didn't get to go on Shark Tank. They went to 3 auditions, and they made it to the 3rd and final round on Shark Tank. And there's still an alternative, But they, and they go, what do you learn? And they go, we tried to sell too many products instead of just coming in with 1 or 2 products. Because they probably have 30, 40 different products. And then we tried to sell the whole product line. They go, if we were to do it again, I'd bring in 1 or 2 and just sell 1 or 2 products. And so there are those type of things out there. For that, there's PR, which is a great one too, which, you send out a release, you know who the targets are, and you know what the publications that they could potentially, Good example is I was working with Smith, who does sunglasses at the time, and we got a call from the Oprah show. This was a couple years ago, but Oprah said, I love your product, I want you to be one of Oprah's products. Now, Oprah asked for about, it was probably like $15,000, $20,000 worth of free product in order to be qualified for one of Oprah's favorite things. And so they finally said no, because at the time they didn't have like the $15,000 to $20,000 worth of the type of product she wanted. She wanted all of one of this ski goggle, and it was like about a $250 retail price point. They didn't have enough. It'd kill their entire production run for the year. And they decided they'd pass. But we did the numbers on it and said, is there any way we could come up with enough product to give her the product, because it's probably worth about, $10 to $20 million of free advertising for about $20,000 worth of product. But they just didn't have the product to give. So there's a lot of really cool things you could do out there to get some really good exposure. So, any other questions? Did I answer your question? Good, I answered one of your two questions tonight. I'm 50-50. All right. Any other last questions? We'll wrap up. I'm out of time. We're out of time, but one last question. All right, thank you. My card's in the back. If you have any questions, feel free to email me a question if you want, or connect with me on social media as well, too. All right, thank you so much for your time.